Everything begins with our heroes heading toward the Great Tree, traveling in a ship created by Nagumo. Yua mentions that only 3 labyrinths remain. Then, Nagumo tells Princess Liliana that he will drop her off near the kingdom. The princess then talks about why they shouldn't visit the emperor of the Hulshire Empire. Shay makes a sad face when that topic comes up, and Tio explains to the princess that Shea has a tragic history related to the Knights of the Hulshire Empire, the Imperial Knights. Shay goes on to explain that all of this happened before she met Nagumo and Yue. The Imperial soldiers attacked her people, killing many of her relatives and kidnapping others. Tio adds that the Hulshire Empire condemns all beastmen to death simply for being beastmen. And as they know, Shay belongs to a beastman race. Many of her relatives are now slaves in that empire. Koki suggests to Nagumo that they should save the beastmen, but Nagumo responds that in this world, treating beastmen as slaves is normal, so they shouldn't get involved. However, he also tells Kuki that he is free to do whatever he wants. Kuki gets angry and leaves, with Shizuku following to calm him down. Kuki says that Nagumo is cruel for not wanting to save the Beastman race, but Shizuku reminds him that Nagumo has suffered more than they have and might just want to leave this world. Suddenly, they realize that Nagumo is changing the ship's course, so they go to ask what's happening. The others explain that Imperial soldiers are chasing some girls. Kuki tells Nagumo that if he doesn't save them, he will. But Nagumo tells him to calm down and asks Shay to check who they are. Shay identifies them as Lana and Mina. Kuki insists they should save them because they look weak, but then the girls suddenly defeat the Imperial soldiers, leaving everyone speechless. Yes, if you remember from the first season, Nagumo trained the Haulia tribe, so now they are very strong. The princess asks why those bunny girls are so strong, and Shay explains that they endured Nagumo's training. A battle breaks out between the Haulia and the Imperials. The Haulia defeat all the soldiers, but one survives and tries to attack the bunny girls, but Nagumo shoots him from his ship. Nagumo jumps from the ship and goes to greet the Haulia, congratulating them on how strong they have become. Shay asks what they are doing fighting Imperial soldiers and where the rest of the tribe is. The young man suggests they move to a quieter place to explain in detail. So, everyone boards Nagumo's ship, where the young man explains that one day, beasts attacked the Haulia tribe. After defeating those monsters, they were left without weapons, and that's when the Imperial soldiers arrived, claiming the Imperial capital had been attacked, and they needed labor to rebuild it. The tribe's chief left with a group of Haulia, but when they entered the Imperial capital, they lost contact with them. Nagumo then decides they will head toward the Empire. Shay tells Nagumo it's not necessary, saying her family is probably fine, but Nagumo gently caresses her cheeks and tells her there's no need to pretend. He reminds her that she is important to him, which makes her confess she is indeed worried about her parents. Suddenly, the scene shifts to the Hulshire Empire's prisons, where we see a beastman inside making a strange face. Moments later, our heroes are in the Empire, and Nagumo notices the disaster in the city, caused by monsters that attacked, or rather, demons. Beast children are being forced to work, and one of them trips. A soldier's about to hit the child for that, but Koki stops him. Nagumo tells Koki to try not to get into trouble, but Koki accuses him of being a bully because he doesn't want to protect Shay's relatives. Nagumo replies that Shay is different from the other beastmen. After investigating for a while, they realize that many of Shay's relatives had caused chaos in the city. Hours later, Nagumo wants Koki and the others to distract the Empire's soldiers by pretending they are going to rescue a beastman from prison, so he makes them Power Rangers helmets. Meanwhile, in the castle's prisons, the beastmen say that Nagumo is like a dark lord and believe he is an ogre. Nagumo overhears them and insults them. They think they are hallucinating. Nagumo then frees the Beast Boy from the cell, while Koki's group begins attacking the castle disguised as Power Rangers. Meanwhile, Shay's father, the leader of the Haulia, is being tortured, but tells the Empire soldiers they are weaklings. Nagumo calls him crazy. Yes, friends, that's Shay's father. But Shay begs Nagumo to save him, so Nagumo takes down the soldiers. He then tells Shay's father that everyone else has already been freed, and he is the last one remaining. Hours later, far from the Empire, all the Haulia reunite, and Shay cries with joy. Later, they meet with Nagumo, and Shay's father informs him that when they were captured, they were interrogated all day, because the Empire wanted to understand how the Haulia had become so powerful. He then says he believes the Haulia are strong enough to declare war on the Empire. Shay tells her father to stop saying crazy things, but Nagumo, since he was the one who trained them, wants to hear the plan clearly to prevent them from doing something reckless. Shay's father explains that if the Halia keep defending themselves, they will all eventually be taken away, so it's time to strike. He insists they must protect other rabbitmen villages that aren't as strong. However, he clarifies that they aren't fools. It won't be a war, but rather silent, nighttime assassinations of the Empire's high-ranking officials. Nagumo makes it very clear that if they fail, it could mean the end of rabbitmen all over the world. Shay cries, fearing for her family, but Nagumo reassures her, promising not to leave her loved ones alone. He then tells the Halia that he won't allow any of their actions to make Shay cry. Therefore, the plan will change. They will have to eliminate the Emperor directly, along with his entire family and friends. The next day, Yue is kissing Nagumo and asks him if Shay is also special to him. He confesses that both she and Yue are the two most special people in the world for him. To keep her from feeling jealous, he kisses her again, and then everyone finds them kissing. Meanwhile, the princess is talking to the Emperor, telling him everything that has recently happened in their kingdom, including how powerful Nagumo is. The princess advises the Emperor not to mess with Nagumo. Then the Emperor mentions that 4 clowns wearing Power Ranger-style masks attacked them at night. Internally, the princess wonders if these guys are crazy for doing such a thing. The Emperor starts questioning Liliana, as he believes Nagumo was involved in everything that happened the previous night, including the escape of the Rabbitmen. To make matters worse, he says that one of the fools, dressed like a Power Ranger, had the same sword the hero uses, which means Koki. To worsen the situation even more, the king is informed that the hero Koki and his friends are at the palace gates looking for Liliana. Meanwhile, a captain from the Emperor's army receives our heroes quite honorably. However, things get uncomfortable when the captain asks why that rabbit woman, referring to Shay, doesn't have a slave collar. Shay remembers that he was the one who slaughtered many of her tribe. The man begins insulting her, saying she won't be spared, even if she's with the hero. He tells Koki to hand over the rabbit woman, claiming he can give him another one instead. Immediately, Nagumo intervenes and warns the man to behave, causing him to fly into a rage. Later, the group meets with the princess, and she asks them, "What the heck did you guys do last night?" She scolds Nagumo, saying she knows he was behind all of it. She tells them they need a good excuse to convince the Emperor they weren't responsible for the previous night's conflicts. However, Nagumo remains relaxed, knowing they can take down the Emperor faster than the princess expects. Nagumo and the others then appear before the Emperor, and everyone is surprised when Nagumo treats him with great respect. However, the Emperor tells Nagumo he knows a lot about him and can treat him like everyone else. He reveals that the princess told him everything about Nagumo, which angers him. Later in a meeting, the Emperor questions Nagumo about his powers and the flying ships, asking if he plans to share them with the Empire. Nagumo admits he possesses many things, but states he won't share them with anyone. Not even the Emperor can stop him. These words put the Emperor's soldiers on high alert. The Emperor sits in front of Nagumo and acknowledges that he is a true monster. The Emperor then demands the rabbit woman, but Nagumo refuses. He also asks Nagumo if he had anything to do with what happened the previous night, to which Nagumo denies involvement. The Emperor asks what Nagumo wants in exchange for allying with the Empire, but Nagumo replies that there is nothing the Emperor can offer him. The Emperor then leaves and invites everyone to the engagement party of Princess Lily with the Emperor's son, shocking everyone. Koki bursts out, calling her crazy, saying she doesn't even like that man. Meanwhile, Nagumo leaves, saying he doesn't care about the matter. Later, Princess Lily dresses for the engagement, and then the prince enters, dismissing the maids so they can be alone. He immediately tries to abuse her, saying he will take her virginity that night. However, Nagumo sends a robotic spider to attack him, and it seems like the prince died. Meanwhile, everyone is elegantly dressed for the engagement party, while the Halia infiltrate the kingdom since that night will be the night they eliminate the High Command. Following the initial infiltration of the Halias, a group of soldiers patrolled the surroundings of the palace, chatting frivolously about their desires to have rabbit women for their amusement. However, the tranquility was shattered when one of them noticed something strange in the shadows. Intrigued, he went to investigate, but turned around to find only his companion's fallen torch. Before he could react, he was instantly eliminated by the leader of the Halias. With the sector secured, they informed the rest of the group that the area was clear, and that the next step would be to infiltrate the palace. Meanwhile, inside the palace, the nobility was enjoying an elegant banquet, The heroes, dressed for the occasion, mingled among those present. While some were busy eating, Nagumo watched the situation closely. In the middle of the event, Princess Lily appeared accompanied by Prince Bios, which generated an awkward silence in the room. After the surprise, the ball continued while King Gar presented his daughter to the nobility. Nagumo, surrounded by women, then seemed oblivious to the tension. Now, one of the women present mentioned the rumor that he had saved Lily from an attack, piquing the curiosity of the others. To avoid being bombarded with questions, Nagumo invited one of them to dance. During the dance, Princess Lily interrupted, moving ahead of the others to dance with Nagumo. As the two moved around the dance floor, they exchanged words in a confidential tone. Lily, very close to Nagumo, asked him if it was okay to get so close, since Prince Bias was watching with obvious hatred. The princess, with an air of defiance, replied that she did not care about the prince's reaction, since that night she would be recognized as heir, and Bias lovers would lose all power. She even hinted that, if she ever needed help, she trusted Nagumo to save her. He calmly assured her that she was already safe, and that the crown prince was finished, which reassured Lily. As the dance ended, the other women made envious comments, speculating about Lily's future marriage. For his part, Nagumo tried to enjoy the moment, but was interrupted by Sie, who informed him that it was time to act. Before leaving, Nagumo gave Sie permission to act freely, reminding her that, at this point, she was the daughter of the leader of the Halia and could do whatever she deemed necessary. In the main hall, King Gar began a speech about his son's engagement, but his speech was abruptly cut short when the lights went out and a shower of arrows rained down from the shadows. The Halias, strategically hidden, began their attack. Although no arrows directly hit the king, he defended himself with his sword and a wind barrier while launching fire attacks to protect himself. However, the Halias took advantage of the confusion to eliminate the king's guards. Elsewhere in the palace, Sie faced a group of reinforcements led by Grid, an enemy who had underestimated her. Grid forgot that Sie was part of Nagumo's group, where no one was weak. In a fierce clash, Sie defeated the soldiers one by one, until she was face to face with Grid. Remembering the pain he had caused her in the past, Sie, with unrelenting force, dealt him a devastating blow in the stomach, forcing him to beg for his life. However, far from showing mercy, he launched him into the sky and finished him off with a blow that sent him to the moon, fulfilling his longed-for revenge. Back in the hall, the paralyzing poison that the Halias had spread began to take effect. This weakened the king, allowing multiple arrows to hit him and strike him down. With the king vulnerable, the leader of the Halias declared that the kingdom must accept their conditions, to grant them complete freedom and never interfere in their affairs. To reinforce their point, they placed the necklace of the oath on the king, making it clear that they were not willing to negotiate. Despite these measures, the king refused to yield, even after they executed his son, Prince Bios. The destruction increased, and the Halias continued to eliminate soldiers and wreak havoc on the palace. Finally, on the verge of despair, the king publicly agreed to their demand, declaring that the Halias, by demonstrating their strength, had conquered the castle. With this victory, the Halias obtained the freedom they had longed for. Hashim, a key player in the strategy, was congratulated for his impeccable performance, thus sealing the victory for his tribe. Then we see Nagumo with the Halias on the ship, and he explains why Verbergen doesn't want them, and that is that they consider the Halias sinners. Although at present things have changed after the king speaks with Nagumo, clearly upset for collaborating with the Halias, and proposes his daughter as a wife. But the girls are offended, but the king reproaches the princess for being with Nagumo dancing, although he denies the relationship. And the king says that the princess not having a husband, the kingdom will weaken too much, although the boys are happy for Lily, since she could be with someone she wanted. And the king proposes anything to Nagumo, but he says that he has what he wants in his arms. Then they arrive at Altina, where we see the tribe happy to be freed, although the forest, because of Nagumo, is destroyed, and Kaori restores it using her powers, and the tribes get on their knees, thinking that she is a goddess. And Ulfric is grateful to our protagonist for saving his daughter, although he also thanks the Halia. Then, the tribes make a pact to unite alliances against the next threats, since eternal peace does not exist. Then, in the meeting, they talk about the instability that there will be after the fall of the kingdom, and Gahard is arrogant, since he does not owe respect to any beastman, only to the Halias, since the others are scum. Sagumo scolds him and sends him to a different place through the portal. Then he tells Kam to show him his village, although Ulfric tells him that he wants to give him a reward, and he accepts the reward. Then, in the conversation of the tribes, Kam refuses to make an alliance with the other tribe and threatens them, telling them that if they cause problems to Nagumo or them, they will have problems later in the house where the girls will stay. They ask about Shay, and her father arrives at that moment and tells our protagonist where she is. Then both are in a giant tree in which she says that it is her mother's grave, and she says that her mother was brave and a great warrior. Then she tells him that she would do anything to pay him back for everything that Sagumo has done for her. He asks her for something, and it is to sleep in Shay's lap. The next day they watch Kaori's training and how well she progresses, and the boys are excited about the adventures. In the palace we see the heroes eating, and Lily crossing through Nagumo's portal, and talks to the other people about her relationship with our protagonist and her gratitude for being a hero to her. Then, in the forest, Nagumo is with the boys to enter the labyrinth, reading the instruction, and we see how they enter, and already being inside. Nagumo says the direction where they have to go. Shay stops and asks him why, but suddenly he captures Yue, Tio, and the big hero, and points the gun at Yue while telling her imposter, and where the real Yue is, and shoots her in the shoulder. But seeing that she does nothing, she gets rid of them, and says that the portal sent them to another place. And advancing through the labyrinth, a noise is heard, and the boys prepare for combat, and it turns out to be a swarm of insects. We see how the boys strive to finish them off, but Nagumo, only with his gun, gets rid of them easily. Then, when they finished with, we see the boys very tired. Then, a monster appeared, in which Kuki wants to finish him off, but Nagumo stops him. The others are confused, and stares at him, and suddenly says that it is Yue, and the monster, reacting happily, turns out to be her. Apparently that portal changed her appearance, left her without equipment, and cannot use magic. Then, Kaori tries to use her regeneration magic, but it does not work. Moving forward, they see a monster receiving a beating by other monsters, and the girls realize that it is Tio. Then we see her in that monster form talking to Nagumo, and tells him that the labyrinth made their physical forms change to realize if the companions have the ability to know who is an imposter and who is not. Then when the boys teleport, we see our protagonist in a room, sleeping, in which Yue entered, to wake him up to go to school. Then at school we see Shay giving him a hug from behind and says in her mind that something is not right, and begins to analyze the situations in which she is. That day, already in her class, we see how he feels strange analyzing the day, and Kaori appears to have his attention, and Tio also appears as a teacher, dressed provocatively in the afternoon, walking with Shay, and Yue goes to look for Mew in kindergarten, although on the way she meets a group of thieves in which Shay stops them very easily. And at the end of the day, together with Yue, he begins to reflect on how he feels, having a full and happy life, although something inside him is screaming. Then Yue tells him that if something does to him, she is missing. She will give it to him, and then remembers the oath he made at that moment and realizes in the false world in which he is, and gives himself a strong punch and reproaches the false Yue for being a bad imitation, while he returns to his other body and manages to get out of that world, saying that his is better. And when the world breaks the fall, Yue says that, congratulations, easy things don't last long. True happiness comes from things that you work hard, that are useless if they give you everything on a silver platter. And his challenge ends, and he wakes up in a room where the boys are locked in capsules, with Amber having the idealized dreams. Nagumo exits the trial and sees the others inside coffins, and they won't wake up until they overcome their trials. So he sits down to wait for them, believing they will pass the test. However, the one he misses the most is Yue. At that moment, Yue's coffin unlocks, and Nagumo carries her out as she has just overcome her trial. When she opens her eyes, Nagumo welcomes her back. He's overjoyed because she is the real Yue, and they embrace. She tells him that in her trial, he was a king, and they had 11 children. Just as they are about to kiss, Shay interrupts them and starts crying to stop them from kissing. Nagumo then strokes her ears to comfort her, and Shay explains that in her experience, they all lived together in her tribe. However, something inside her told her that reality was fake. She saw Nagumo, began following him, and that's how she woke up. Nagumo tells her he's glad she came back, because nothing is the same without her. Suddenly, Ryuta wakes up, talking nonsense about his experience, and when he sees Nagumo, he goes to hug him, but Nagumo doesn't let him. Instead, he pats his head and welcomes him. Suddenly, Kaori wakes up, and Nagumo asks her about her dream, but she blushes, implying that it was something perverted. At this point, the only ones left to return are the heroes group. So, Nagumo says he's going to rest, while that group returns. Hours later, Shizuku is the first to wake up. She tells everyone that she feels very tired. She also dreamed that she was a princess and that Nagumo was the prince, but she didn't tell anyone about it. Since the others still weren't waking up, Kaori used her magic to wake them. Once everyone is awake, they prepare to cross the portal, though they're afraid because they don't know if they'll enter dreams again. However, when they cross, everyone stays together. They keep walking and suddenly it begins to rain. Almost immediately, they are attacked by rolling slimes. Yue creates a barrier and Nagumo defeats all the slimes. In the end, Nagumo tells Yue to keep the barrier up, but she dismisses it, saying she feels strange because she desires him intensely. In fact, everyone starts feeling this way except for Nagumo. Later, they overcome the issue, and Nagumo informs everyone that they are in an underground location. He explains that the tree is so massive that what they are looking at are its branches, not its roots. Even though they are underground, suddenly Shay looks into the distance and freezes. When Nagumo goes to check, he sees millions of cockroaches below, something he finds extremely unsettling. He sends one of his machines to show the others the millions of cockroaches. Then, out of nowhere, the cockroaches charge at them to attack. Yue puts up a barrier, making the cockroaches retreat and form a ball, summoning super cockroaches. But that's not all. The portal emits a strange light that suddenly makes Nagumo hate Yue, and she also says she hates him. So they keep telling each other how much they hate each other. And now Koki loves Nagumo and says he won't let anyone touch him. Nagumo realizes that the magic of the cockroaches reverses feelings. Then Tio explains that this trial seems to work in such a way that the stronger the bond between two people, the stronger the opposite emotion becomes. And the worst part is that now they love the cockroaches. Even so, they start killing them, of course. We're talking about the small cockroaches. But then, the bigger ones come to attack, and Shay starts fighting them. Basically, everyone organizes to fight the humanoid cockroaches. Nagumo keeps fighting the cockroaches, and suddenly Yue attacks the cockroaches and Nagumo with some spiritual dragons. And Nagumo gets angry because Yue injured him with that attack. Suddenly, the cockroaches create a more powerful one that attacks with acidic power. However, Nagumo fires missiles at it and defeats it. Even so, more and more cockroaches of all kinds keep appearing, and those two keep fighting them. At one point, one of the cockroaches uses the Shadow Clone Jutsu and dodges all the shots Nagumo fires at it. Even so, Yue paralyzes it, and Nagumo shoots it, finishing it off. But they realize that there are still many more humanoid cockroaches. All of them attack Nagumo at once, but Yue uses an attack called Asura, which is like a wind bomb, defeating and striking all the cockroaches. After that, Nagumo escapes through a portal, while Yue uses her high-level magic to fight all the cockroaches, defeating most of them. Suddenly, Yue tells Nagumo to give her 20 minutes because she is preparing a special spell, and she asks him to protect her. Both of them realize that the cockroach magic effect is wearing off, and they are falling in love again. Nagumo tells her that he no longer hates her, but still sees her as an arrogant brat. So Nagumo pulls out a super weapon and shoots at the cockroaches, but hundreds of millions of cockroaches swarm over them. Nagumo says there must be a cockroach god somewhere that they have to defeat to end this trial. At that moment, Yue finishes her spell, which is called Divine Purgatory, and it wipes out all the cockroaches. Nagumo tells Yue that her attack was so powerful, it seems like she defeated the Cockroach King. After this, they regroup with the others. Suddenly, everyone sees that a part of the branches of the great tree is glowing, and roots emerge from that part. Those roots lead them to a door, and now they appear in a place that looks like paradise. Tio tells them that this seems to be the tree's peak. They arrive at a place with a sort of statue, and suddenly an elf woman appears, congratulating them for passing several labyrinths. She tells them that she is the one who designed all the trials. She also tells them that she has just given them the magic of evolution, which enhances all powers by at least one level. She explains that if they train this magic enough, it will become the magic of a god, surpassing divine magic. However, there are 7 of these types of magic, and she and her companions were only able to create 3 because they are very difficult to make. Then, she gives Nagumo a compass, telling him that it allows him to find whatever his heart desires. It doesn't matter what it is. It could even be an object from another world, or lead him to another world. And these words leave Nagumo deeply impressed. And the elf tells everyone that if they obtain all the magic, nothing will be impossible for them. And afterwards, she turns into wood and goes back inside the tree. And Nagumo tells the other humans on the team that now, with the compass, they know the way back to Earth. And he tells those who aren't human that he will take them to Earth with him. So he tells everyone that it's time to return to Berbigan. Later, back in the village, the chief's daughter's harassing Nagumo, so Shay slaps her. And Nagumo tells her not to worry about anyone because she is special to him. And well, Yue doesn't seem to mind Nagumo giving love to another girl. Hours later, while they are having tea, Kaori asks Nagumo, since when Shay became special to him. And Nagumo tells her that even though no one compares to Yue, he still wants Shay to be all his. So he decided to treat Shay the way she should be treated. But since Nagumo knows that they all love him, he tells them that they are all special to him. And Yue tells Kaori that she accepts that Nagumo loves Shay, but not that he loves Kaori. Hours later, Shay tells Nagumo that she wants to talk to him about what he said before, and Nagumo tells her emphatically that she is special to him and that he doesn't want to see her in anyone else's arms. She cries, and immediately, Nagumo kisses her. And then they stop because everyone is watching them. And Nagumo tells Shay that they have been spying from the beginning, but he let them because there is nothing to hide. Then everyone is gathered and Suzu asks Nagumo for a favor, telling him to please help her become stronger because she wants to find Eri and take her back to Japan. Yes, friends, Eri was the one who ended the original body of Kaori. And she kneels because she knows that Nagumo hates Eri and what she is asking is difficult. And Kuki joins the request, recognizing that Eri wants to kill him more than anyone, but that he cannot leave Suzu alone, since Suzu wants to go to the Demon Kingdom to find Eri, but he is not going to leave her alone. And in the end, Kuki and this guy also ask Nagumo for the same favor. So Nagumo gives Suzu permission to go after Nakamura. Suddenly we see this guy named Freed, watching some zombie beasts soldiers, a mixture of zombies and beasts that are stronger than normal demons, and this man is admiring them. And suddenly Eri appears, asking him if he is happy with his creation, and he says that they are quite well made, and that he sent many of them to receive certain guests, and Eri is excited about this. That morning, Yaigashi is training when Nagumo wakes up and asks to borrow her black sword. She lends it to him, and he tells her he will strengthen it much more. Nagumo also says he will enhance everyone else's weapons. She falls asleep watching him work. The next day, they are on Nagumo's ship. While he pilots the ship, Nagumo tells everyone that the compass works very well, the only downside being that it consumes a lot of magical power. Meanwhile, Shay is very excited because they are now heading to the last labyrinth. Moments later, Nagumo says his airship can't get any closer to the labyrinth, so they have to land, and they land to find everything covered in snow. Shay jumps into the snow, but falls into a deep hole, and everyone else jumps in too, since they have to go down anyway. Later, they are deep in that place, and Nagumo tells everyone they should start exploring. They begin to walk, and Shay hears something. They see a cute little rabbit, and Shizuku gets excited seeing it, but then feels embarrassed as everyone looks at her. Then it turns out there are many rabbits, and one approaches Nagumo, who immediately destroys it, which was unexpected. So, the rabbits start attacking him, and he deals with them, making everyone wonder if Nagumo is going crazy. He pulls out a weapon to deal with the rabbits, and later, as they walk, Nagumo swears those rabbits were monsters, but no one believes him. Shay tells him it hurts to see him rip off rabbit ears like it's nothing, and Nagumo replies that the only thing he cares about is her, and not to compare herself to a mere rabbit, words that make Kaori and Tio realize Nagumo is serious about Shay. Later, as they walk deeper into the place, Suzu asks Shizuku if she's feeling okay, since she seems distracted, and Shizuku says she's fine. They reach an exit where there's a blizzard that freezes quickly, so Suzu creates a barrier to shield them from the snow until they reach what appears to be the entrance to a frozen cave. Inside the cave, ice birds appear, and Nagumo shoots them all down, realizing a camouflaged monster is controlling the ice birds. Nagumo warns that all the ice in the cave is controlled by the enemy, and then ice werewolves appear, which Nagumo destroys, leading to the appearance of the ice-controlling boss. Nagumo tells the others to handle the boss while he deals with the weaker monsters. They start fighting until Kuki defeats the boss with a super attack but faints from exhaustion. However, since the monster was controlling and creating more monsters with a red gem, it transforms into an ice bird with the gem, which Kuki couldn't destroy, and he wants to destroy it but is too weak. The bird then embeds itself, gem and all, into a wall, revealing a new door. So, the group goes through it, guided by Nagumo's compass. And Kuki gets nervous because he hears something. And Koki remains scared until Shizuku asks him if something is wrong, and he says that nothing is wrong. But he keeps hearing voices and stops everyone, because he insists that he is hearing something, but no one else has heard anything, so they tell him that he is very tense and needs to relax. But in the middle of them, he keeps saying that he continues to hear that thing, and everyone begins to get scared. And Nagumo asks Shea, who has the best hearing, if she heard anything, and she says no. So they keep walking, and Nagumo tells him that he believes him even though he doesn't believe it, and that he knows he is not crazy, and that they understand that they are under the influence of something, and that perhaps what he is hearing is one of the labyrinths tests, and that sooner or later they will also hear it. So he orders everyone to be careful. But immediately Koki hears voices that tell him that Nagumo didn't believe him at all. Koki tells this to Shizuku, and she tells him to calm down, but suddenly she also hears the voice, and she tells it to Koki, but in her case, she hears the voice of a woman, and suddenly everyone begins to hear voices. And Nagumo tells everyone that the voices they are hearing are their own voices from the outside, and that's why everyone ends up confused. Nagumo suggests that they ignore the voices and looks at the compass, and tells them that, according to the compass, there is a room ahead, suggesting going there to rest. We see that Shizuku has a sad face, and we see that her inner evil self accuses her of being a fool for always serving others. Then, they are resting in the natural ice room, and then they continue their way, and Koki hears his voice that tells him that he is a loser compared to Nagumo, which makes him angry, and he sees his other evil self, which is the one tormenting him. Everyone gets scared, and Koki says that his reflection in the ice smiled at him. Shizuku tells him that maybe it was his imagination, and those words anger Koki, telling her that if it were Nagumo who said it, she would believe him immediately. But Shizuku tells him that she does not doubt him, so Koki asks for forgiveness. Minutes later, they finally leave that damned ice cave, and they arrive at a door that is in that place. At that moment, Nagumo stares at the ceiling when suddenly a huge number of ice monsters fall. And when everyone attacks, the second team, that is Koki's team, attacks the first one, and they swear that something manipulated them. And Nagumo realizes that, in the end, the voices are not from themselves, but are a form of manipulation that something is using against them. So Nagumo takes out a super weapon and blows up the ice monsters, but they come back and regenerate. And to summarize, each one must fight an ice monster, and in the end, they win. And they wait for Koki's team, who, half an hour later, defeat the monsters they were assigned but are very injured. And Kaori goes to heal them, so now they just have to go through that golden door, although they are afraid because they don't know if it is the exit or the entrance to a portal. And when they cross, Namugo immediately realizes that they have been separated. And when he arrives at a place where he sees his reflection, he knows he will have to face himself. Nagumo's reflection tells him that it knew seeing it wouldn't affect him too much, since Nagumo doesn't get scared or anything. And Nagumo asks it whether it's completely him or if it changes in some way. His reflection replies that they are the same but not entirely identical. Rather, it's a test for him to confront his most unpleasant side, meaning a trial to see if he wouldn't give in to the power of the evil god. So suddenly, Nagumo's evil other self changes its appearance slightly and emerges from the ice, ready to face him. Thus, the two begin to fight intensely. While they're fighting, the black-haired Nagumo tells the original that he has become a monster and that the real world won't tolerate killers like him. He also tells him that he only has Yue to cling to in order to bear the fact that the whole world rejects him, and that he secretly takes refuge in her. He asserts that he doesn't love Yue, but rather, to avoid feeling abandoned by everyone, he seeks shelter in her. But Nagumo manages to strike him and tells him that, although everything his copy says is true, he has no choice but to keep moving forward. However, he adds that there's something his copy got wrong, because only 1% of what he feels for Yue is reliance, while the other 99% is love. Though his copy gets angry, calling him a liar, saying that even if it's 10% of what he feels for Yue that's reliance, it's still there. And the figure tells him that what he truly represents are his negative feelings, and that if Nagumo overcomes them, he will weaken. So Nagumo delivers the final blow, and his copy disappears. Suddenly, another door appears. All of a sudden, Shizuku faces the same test and immediately confronts her other self, who quickly warns her original self that if she doesn't defeat her, she will die here. and a frantic battle begins. With each passing moment, Shizuku becomes more injured, and Shizuku's copy reveals that she never wanted to learn how to use a sword, but rather to be a princess, and that she loves Koki. She also reminds her of a phrase that broke her heart, when Koki said he liked another girl, and then attacks her fiercely. She forces her to confess that she's also in love with Nagumo, making her feel like a traitor, because Nagumo is the person her best friend Kaori loves most. Then, she gives her a severe beating. Shizuku starts crying a lot while saying she doesn't want to die. She begins begging for someone to help her, but just as she's about to die, Nagumo stops the enemy's sword while protecting Shizuku. So Nagumo destroys the sword of the copy and gives Shizuku a liquid to drink. And Nagumo tells her that when he passed his test, he found a path that appeared and led him to this place. And Shizuku strokes his face, thanking him for saving her, though she later regrets it. And so that she can defeat her other self, he gives her the pink Power Rangers mask, telling her it will enhance her perception. And Nagumo reminds her that the other Shizuku doesn't represent her 100%, but only her bad feelings. And he tells her he won't let her die, that he'll be protecting her while she fights. So she stands in front of her other self again, and her copy calls her a traitor for flirting with Nagumo. Thus, the two only made one single move. And so Shizuku manages to defeat her other self, and she almost faints. But Nagumo catches her, and now she's more relaxed with Nagumo and flirts with him. And she asks him to make her a creation artifact, specifically a hair ornament since hers broke, and Nagumo makes it for her. She puts it on, and Nagumo tells her that as long as she wears it, it will heal her body. So Nagumo carries her, and she asks him if he heard her conversation with her other self. And Nagumo says no, and she tells him she'll tell everyone she's in love with him. And Nagumo gets nervous. Meanwhile, a girl named Eri wakes up saying she dreamed of Zuzu, while we see that Suzu is fighting her other self, insulting her and saying that all the harm Eri caused is her fault. This angers Suzu, and she attacks her other self harder. Suzu says that no matter the past, she wants to see Eri again, and her copy tells her to show her maximum power. So Suzu prepares herself and unleashes a super attack. And thus Suzu ends up defeating her opponent and falls unconscious. Meanwhile, we see Tio facing her other self, and the copy attacks Tio. Tio returns to her human form and shoots some kind of beam at her. Suzu and another guy carrying her arrive at this place and witness that battle. Tio's copy reveals that she's actually following Nagumo to use him so that Nagumo fights against the god, since part of the plan was to take down that god, which would count as revenge for her. She also says that, if possible, she wants Nagumo to die because she hates everyone. Humans, beastmen, demons, and gods. All of them must die. She tells Tio that if she joins her, she'll help her fulfill her revenge. And Tio asks her other self what the purpose of this world is. Tio begins to enter her dragon state and says she doesn't hate any race because she's not just a dragon, but a dragon human. Her other self realizes that Tio used the test to see if she could resist the god's temptation and even deceive him. In the end, Tio destroys her. Then Tio goes to talk to Suzu and the other guy, asking them if they've seen the others, and they tell her no. Then we see a place where it seems a war has just taken place, and there are some dead soldiers, and we see a princess on a horse. Her uncle arrives and tells her that he never would have thought she'd go into battle wearing a dress. Her uncle begs her to take a break because she hasn't rested since the battle began. And in case you hadn't noticed, that princess is Yui. Yes, friends, it seems we're in a flashback. Back in the present, we see Yui fighting against her other self, who reveals that Yui's real name is Alicia. To torment Yui, her other self reminds her that her uncle betrayed her. We return to Yui's memories, where we see Yui walking with her uncle and asking him to have dinner together because she wants his opinion on some matters. Her uncle asks if she's giving him an order, and Yui says no. He then tells her he's sorry, but will have to decline her invitation because he has important matters to attend to, and he leaves. Later, she's on the throne and recalls her father's words, warning her to be careful with her uncle because he believes she stole the throne from him. Suddenly, there's an explosion, and it's Yui's uncle, who stabs her with a sword. Back in the present, her other self also stabs her with an ice sword, telling her that everyone will betray her. However, her copy feels herself weakening, and Yui tells her that she forgave that betrayal in the past, because thanks to it, she was able to meet Nagumo. Meanwhile, we see Shay fighting her own other self, who blames her for the death of her entire race. But Shay attacks her, telling her to shut up, striking her and knocking her out, thus passing her test. At the same time, Yue's copy reveals to her that her race isn't completely immortal. There's a way to kill her, and attacks Yue. This angers Yue, who retaliates with a super attack that makes her copy disappear. The only downside is that her copy vanishes without revealing the one way she could die. At that moment, Shay arrives, saying she passed her test, but Yue acts strange and tells Shay that if something ever happens to her, she entrusts Nagumo to Shay. Shay slaps her and says it seems her copy left her a coward. She gets so angry that they start fighting. Yue freezes her, but Shay keeps attacking, telling her to take back what she said and that she won't accept a future without Yue. Then we move to Kaori, who is fighting her own replica. The replica tells her she's the only one who hasn't been able to have Nagumo. They start fighting, and Kaori tells her copy that she wants to be perfect like Yue, strong like Shay, and smart like Tio. She unleashes a super attack on her copy to finish her off. Suddenly, Kaori arrives where Yue and Shay are still fighting. Yue tries to explain to Shay that there's another reason why she was locked up, but Shay says something very offensive to Yue, which angers her, and now they start fighting for real. Honestly, the battle gets pretty epic, like something out of Dragon Ball. Both end up on the ground, and Shay tells Yue never to say those words again. Yue hugs her and asks for forgiveness. If you made it to this part of this video, comment the word Anigoat, subscribe, and remember, I upload 3 videos daily. I'll be waiting for you in all 3.